What if a police chase scattered an elderly man's family history? What if they refused to take the blame? In Alaska, 84-year-old Edward Thompson lost a lifetime of memories, but his community framed his past with love. Stay tuned for a story of fallen photos, betrayal, and a gallery of healing. In the snowy suburb of Frosty Pines, Alaska, the streets were blanketed in fresh powder. The scent of pine trees filled the air. Here, Edward Thompson had lived for over 6 decades. He was an 84-year-old widower with a reflective heart. Edward had bought his $200,000 cabin with his late wife in 1965. It was a home filled with the warmth of generations. On the cold morning of January 15, 2029, Edward sat in his living room. He carefully opened a weathered photo album. The album held black and white photos of his parents, color snapshots of his children, and Polaroids of his grandchildren. Each picture told a story of his family across generations. "This is our legacy," Edward would say to his late wife. He turned a page, smiling at a photo of his son as a boy. His voice was soft. "I see you all in these." The sound of a distant snowplow hummed outside. Frosty Pines was a quiet neighborhood. But that morning, chaos erupted. A police chase tore through the icy streets. They were pursuing a thief who had stolen from a local grocery store. Sirens wailed loudly. Tires skidded on the snow. Edward looked up, startled. His hands rested on the album. The chase moved toward Edward's house. The thief, desperate, ran through his front yard. 2 officers chased him on foot. One officer, 37-year-old James Carter, entered Edward's home through an open garage door, thinking the thief was inside. In his haste, he knocked over a shelf in the living room. The photo album fell to the floor, pages tearing and photos scattering across the room. Edward rushed to the scene, his heart sinking. "My family, my photos," he gasped. Tears welled in his eyes. Carter froze, seeing the scattered photos and Edward's distress. He quickly left to pursue the thief. "Sir, I'll be back," he called out. His voice was tense. Edward knelt by the torn album, gathering the photos. Each picture was a piece of his family: birthdays, weddings, holidays. The scattered images felt like losing them all again. The pain was sharp in his chest. The officers caught the thief a block away. Carter returned to Edward's home, seeing him still on the floor, clutching the torn pages. "Sir, are you okay?" he asked. His voice was hurried. Edward's voice trembled. "These photos, my family through generations," he sobbed. His hands shook as he held a faded picture. The living room felt colder without the album's warmth. Carter radioed for backup. The static crackled as he spoke. "We've got a civilian upset, situation under control," he said. His tone was dismissive. Neighbors rushed into Edward's home. They gasped at the sight of the scattered photos. Some knelt beside him. His sobs grew softer. The torn pages mirrored the torn pieces of his heart. Edward couldn't bear to look at the album for days. The scattered photos were a painful reminder of his loss. He thought of his parents, his children, his grandchildren, all captured in those images. "These hold our story," he'd tell his wife before she passed. Now the story was in pieces. Tears fell as Edward sat in silence. The winter wind howled outside. The Homeowners Association took action. The HOA president, 52-year-old Sarah Bennett, had known Edward for years. Sarah's family had shared holiday meals with Edward's. A neighbor's security camera had captured the incident. The footage showed Carter entering the house and the album falling. It showed the photos scattering across the floor. But Officer Carter denied responsibility. The album was already damaged, he claimed. His voice was cold. "We didn't cause his distress." Sarah's heart broke for Edward. She held the camera footage tightly. "This is devastating," she said to the HOA board. Her voice was firm. "Edward deserves his family back." The board agreed to fight for him. They hired a lawyer to sue the police department. The rustle of legal documents filled their meeting room. Edward's loss became their cause. The community would not let him grieve alone. The trial took place in a local courthouse. Residents packed the gallery. Their footsteps echoed on the wooden floor. Edward sat in the front row. His hands trembled as he held a photo of his grandchildren smiling in the snow. His eyes were red from crying. The lawyer played the camera footage. The video filled the screen. It showed Carter's reckless entry and the album falling. It showed the photos scattering. Gasps filled the courtroom. The evidence was clear. Officer Carter took the stand. He shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't see the album," he lied. His voice wavered. The judge's gaze was sharp. "The footage contradicts your statement," she said. Her tone was stern. The lawyer pressed further. "You saw Mr. Thompson in distress. Why didn't you take responsibility?" he asked. Carter hesitated. I was focused on the suspect," he said. The courtroom murmured in disbelief. Edward spoke next. His voice trembled as he stood. "These photos, my family through generations," he said. Tears streamed down his face. "My parents, my kids, all here." He held up the photo of his grandchildren, their smiles bright. "When they fell, I lost them again." The courtroom fell silent. Jurors wiped their eyes. Sarah squeezed Edward's hand. The judge delivered her verdict. Her gavel slammed down with a resounding thud. "Officer Carter, you are guilty of reckless destruction," she declared. Her voice boomed. "You caused harm and lied about it." The department was ordered to pay Edward $4,800 in damages. Carter faced a unique penalty. He was required to join a photo preservation project and create a new album himself. The courtroom erupted in applause. Edward's neighbors cheered for him. Carter spent weeks in the photo preservation project, learning to restore and organize old photos. He worked carefully, his hands unsteady at first. The process made him reflect on Edward's pain. He created a new album, placing the recovered photos in protective sleeves and adding a leather cover. On a quiet morning, he arrived at Edward's home. He carried the new album carefully. "Mr. Thompson, I'm so sorry," he said. His voice was soft. He handed Edward the album. Edward nodded, his eyes misty. The community had more in store for Edward. Sarah and the neighbors planned a special evening. They called it Edward's Family Story Night and gathered in the community center. On the night of the event, neighbors brought their own family photos to share. Edward sat at the front, the new album open in his lap. "This was my son's first birthday," he said, pointing to a photo. His voice was warm. Neighbors shared their stories, laughter filling the room. Edward looked around, his heart full. He thought of his parents, his children, his grandchildren, all alive in the photos. "You'd love this, dear," he whispered to his late wife. His voice was tender. The community had given him more than an album. They had given him connection. Frosty Pines became a symbol of justice and love. Edward smiled as he turned a page. The story of his family lived on, and so a scattered photo album became a battle for justice in Frosty Pines, Alaska. Edward Thompson found joy through his community's love. How would you preserve a family's story? What do you think? Should communities fight for connection? Share your thoughts. Join us next time for another tale of justice. Until then, keep standing up for what's right. Thank you for listening.